Hey everybody, how we doing today? Hope you're all doing great. Hope you at least got outside and get some fresh air, and good to hear you and see you all keeping up with your practicing, and everybody's doing great. So we're gonna just jump right in and pick up with where we left off with the stick control primer, okay? So we started talking about a triplet sticking. Right, up, up, right, up, right. Putting the right hand on the cymbal. Quarter notes on the bass drum, very, very lightly feathering the bass drum. 2 and 4, nice and crisp as you can get on the hi-hat, and then really trying to make that cymbal have that triplet feel. Okay? So once you get that under control and you're really comfortable with it, you want to start taking the left hand out. The exercise, have the left hand in, and then take it out. Okay, we spoke about some ways to say it. Dog, walk the dog, walk the dog, walk the dog, walk the dog. However, now let's really focus on the counting, because in order to kind of get into the next part of the lesson with the syncopation book, I think it's important we know what the counts are. So at this point, if you've gotten yourself here by saying a certain thing or saying the stickings, let's now get the counts together. So I'll slow it down a bit. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, great. And we're going to put the emphasis on beats 2 and 4 on the cymbal. And some of you will know that, recognize that it's actually what we're playing with the hi-hat too. For some of you that are new to jazz, you can really think of that as your backbeat in straight eighth type music. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, stop. Okay, so now we are finally going to get to the syncopation book that has no cover. And I think right there you'll see a cover. I'll put something up right about there, okay? With the technological skills we're advancing in, we'll put a cover up, the old stick control syncopation book. And we're going to go right to the beginning. And what we're dealing on with at the beginning on page 4, lesson 1, okay, is simply quarter notes. And what you're going to see when you open the book is a bottom line and a top line, all written in common time. And for our intents and purposes, this is going to recognize only 2 parts of the drum set, the bass drum and the snare drum. All right, so line 1 is pretty easy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, stop. Quarter notes on the snare drum, quarter notes on the bass drum. Okay, now we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Quarter notes on the bass drum, quarter notes on the snare drum. But we're going to add our new jazz ride pattern in 2 and 4 on the hi-hat. So actually we can just start with that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, stop. Okay, so what we need to really recognize, and especially for someone new to jazz or the younger student, is that the cymbal and the hi-hat are not written in the music. You're only getting the bass drum and the snare drum, okay? And if reading the quarter notes, the coordination of the snare drum and the bass drum is giving you trouble, stop right there and work on that. It's totally cool. Do not rush this process. But the main thing we need to understand from the beginning is that the cymbal and the hi-hat are implied. People are going to assume you know that that's there even though it's not written in the music. And that's why we did the primer exercise to get here. Okay, so playing quarter notes on the snare drum against the ride pattern and bass drum and hi-hat is a little harder than people give it credit for. Okay, that's a little bit of coordination there, lining up the cymbal on all and the snare drum on all 4 beats. And some of the greatest jazz drummers in history, like Art Blakey, okay, could really make something that simple on paper sound amazing. So don't underestimate how difficult quarter notes are. And if you're struggling with lesson 1, line 1, might I suggest we do this pattern, which a lot of you can probably do because it's just adding the left hand in on beats 2 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I just do bass and snare. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so if we look at page 5, that's number 14. That's line 14. So if that's all we can do for now, that's completely fine. Start there. Start there, and let's now get the right feel and the right approach to know that we're playing the cymbal and hi-hat, but in this book, only reading the bass and snare drum. 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's bring our volume of the snare down and the bass down. Okay? And when you get that together, you could even try 15, where the snare drum is on 1 and 3. Put them both together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. You go back to number 1, and that's what you have. And you're going to work your way all the way down lines 1 through 9 and 10 to 15. And then you're going to get to the reading exercise. And the great thing about the first few pages of the Syncopation book is that you get these reading exercises at the end of the lesson. That's why I think it's really important for the beginning student to check out the beginning part of this book, and it helps us to work on our reading. So the reading is a 16-bar exercise where we're going to have all the variations of quarter notes on the snare drum while keeping a steady bass drum on quarter notes. In this case, we're going to feather it, and we're going to keep the jazz pattern going on the cymbal and 2 and 4 on the hi-hat. So remember, all that's written in is the snare drum and bass drum. If you're having difficulty reading that, try just the snare drum and bass drum with an alternate sticking to start. Okay, this is the 16-bar exercise. And maybe keep the hi-hat on 2 and 4 as well. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Okay? And even for intermediate to advanced players, experienced players, this is a good exercise. And the next part of it's a really good exercise. So we're going to read down quarter notes, okay, against the jazz ride pattern. And we're going to be focusing on the quarter notes. We have a triplet feel on the skip notes. 1, 2, 3, ta, ta. But really, we really want to be thinking quarter notes here, okay? Quarter notes on this groove. 16-bar exercise, jazz ride pattern, 2 and 4, which aren't written in the book, but you're going to be reading the middle line of the staff with the snare drum, the bottom line with the bass drum. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, Okay, and there you go. There's a great reading exercise, and it's really going to help you when you go to start playing in stage band or jazz band when you're getting some charts that are quarter note based. Okay, the next 3 lessons in the syncopation book. Next 2, excuse me, lessons 2 and lessons 3 are still dealing with quarter notes, okay? So I'm only going to focus right now on the reading parts of them, the 16-bar exercises with each lesson, okay? Lesson 2 is quarter notes and bass drum together with quarter rests. I'm going to do the reading exercise, kind of quickly show you how to do that. One thing to make sure of is we're not flamming the snare drum and the bass drum. We don't want that sound. We want it nice and solid together. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is 16-bar exercise, reading snare drum and bass drum, page 7. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, Okay, lesson 3, bass drum. We're breaking up the quarter notes now between the bass drum and snare drum. This is going to be the first part of a little bit of independence, where we're starting to play things at different times on the quarter note beat. Really, really important to starting to build our foundation, okay? We're getting in the right direction now of what we can do with this book. This is page 9, 16-bar exercise. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, and 1. Okay, so there you go. The syncopation book, first 3 lessons of the book with our jazz ride pattern, reading only the snare drum and bass drum. This is going to give you a really good foundation for what's to come later on in the book. Next week, we're going to check out some more triplets and then eventually talk about how to interpret the 8th notes in this book. Okay, I hope you're well. Stay healthy. Keep practicing. We'll see you next time.